Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the ThriveinEDU podcast. I am your host, Rachelle Dené Poth. Super excited today. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, thank you. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining in. I hope you will subscribe. But I'm excited because I actually have a guest today. And those of you that are listeners know that for a long time, it was just me talking to myself. And it's so much more fun when I have somebody to actually engage in a conversation with. So my guest today is Ronel from Kai's Education, and we'll learn a little bit more about her and the work that she does. But first, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks, Rachelle. This is awesome. I just love joining you, and I'm coming all the way from New Zealand. So yeah, a long way.
I know. And I always joke with anybody who's from the other side of the world. They're like, what's the future like? Is tomorrow better than today? But the time difference, it is interesting. And that's just, I think it's fascinating. Technology just fascinates me, which we're going to be talking about some technology. But first, before we dive into our topics of the day, for anybody who is listening, would you give us a little bit about your background? What got you to where you are today?
Okay, so I started in film and television. So long time ago, did advertising, and then advertising started to change quite a lot, and we got more into training videos, and then training videos led to sort of VR, and I got involved in some educational games. So I've done games for financial literacy and health and safety, and I did a game for girls. And then, so I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life. And then I have been friends with the co-founder, Bruce, for about 20 years, and he was doing this little robot. And I looked at it and I'm like, I can sell it. I think one of my strengths is I can probably sell anything. And I said to him, let's do this together. And he goes, okay, let's do this. So about 5 years ago, he started developing Kai's Clan, which is actually that was the first robot. We just threw every single technology that we could find. We sort of put it in the product, and it became our Steam toolbox, and it was really good. So just the passion came sort of always from the creative side, but yeah, selling stuff.
That is, I always love hearing everybody's story and their background, especially talking to, people that work with different companies, and then people who are educators that started in business and then made a transition, or vice versa. But just how you make these connections. And it's like, if you could read into the future, or like at any point in your life, did you think you would be doing what you're doing now? And a lot of times people are like, didn't see that coming, like had no idea. So, wow, I knew some of the story about you, but I didn't know all of that. So that's really, really fascinating. And the work that you do with Kai's, so specifically, like you said, like sales is something that you're good at. And when you are working, with educators, or like, I'm sure some of the questions that you get come from people of all areas of education, different roles and different grade levels. And are there any challenges that you find coming from like the person who is providing a service or a platform, or different robots and different amazing things in this case, that people are kind of like, I don't know about this? Like, what helps you, because you're good at sales? What is that thing that helps you to really like get them to kind of lean in and listen a little bit more?
I think it's the passion. I think, and you would say, well, how is that a challenge? But I think coming from, talking about, my background, and when I developed this game for girls, I became quite a feminist, and I really wanted to give equal rights to everybody. So for me, inclusivity was becoming really, really, that was a challenge. I wanted every girl to be able to code. So when girls can code, I just think it's an amazing organization. So when I talk to teachers and they go, oh, yeah, coding, it's just another, yeah, okay, we don't all need to code. I always come back, it's not about the coding, it is what we do with it. And that is why we try and do very cross-curricular stuff. So, you use coding in maths, we use coding in, you've got a Mars and you can run around on Mars. We use it in in science, it's really those STEAM subjects. But the challenge is that everybody should understand it. We don't need to all become programmers, but you need to understand data, and data you learn through coding, and coding is being, data is being used everywhere. So the challenge is it's not that difficult. And that is why we developed KaiBot, which is like an intro level, screen-free, unplugged. We've got 3-year-olds that's using it that can start learning how to code. And now I think one of the challenges that we slowly overcome is we actually train teachers. So in 6 universities, and instead of a textbook, they actually get a KaiBot, and they learn how to code. And we talk about special education, because obviously KaiBot is also in Braille, with Braille coding cards and fully accessible. So, we're making a difference. And I'm trying to say, don't think coding is computer science and, oh my gosh, I never learned that. Start those little baby steps and learn with the students.
And you said so many things there that I want to go back to. I was trying to make sure that I was recalling them. And I always think like recency versus primacy, but I'm tossing that out the window. But I guess like the one thing too is the coding. There's such a great demand for STEM related skills. And there is a big hesitancy I've seen, in the 8th grade class that I teach. It's on emerging technology, and we do a lot with artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality, and a big part of that is also coding. And sometimes students are afraid. I mean, as an educator, I'm sometimes afraid that I'm not going to know the answer. And for years, that was uncomfortable, because I thought, well, what do I do if they can't do something and then I don't know the answer to it? But then I realized that's okay, because we learn with and from them. And it's awesome for them when they teach us something too. They're surprised sometimes at first, like, you're the technology teacher, you didn't know that? Like, well, I can't possibly know everything, but it's exciting. And then whenever they realize that it's not always about, like you said, like computer science. I know that when I started teaching my STEAM course years ago, it was when we got a grant, and teaching French and Spanish at the time, my principal said, well, we're going to have you teach hummingbirds. And I've told this story so many times, because as soon as I heard him say hummingbirds, I was so confused, thinking like, I didn't have the training for that, because I was thinking of hummingbirds outside flying around. I'm like, isn't that a safety issue in the school? So I just said, sounds great. And then I walked out of his office and I Googled hummingbirds and STEAM, and I found that it was a robot. And I remember being sent to my first training, and I walked in the room, and there were no robots. All that was there were markers and Post-it notes, like a bunch of sticky pads. And I'm like, how is this coding? And then they had us doing, arrows and things like that. And I went, but I need to learn how to code a robot. And I didn't understand that, like, I didn't need to have the technology. I mean, you can have students stand up in your classroom and talking like 2 steps forward, 1 step left, and all of that. So I love that point that you made. And the other thing that I think is just phenomenal with the KaiBot is the Braille, because I've had students come in and say like, oh, I have a friend who, like they need this. And the fact that it's on there is awesome. I didn't even notice it the first time. I was just, every time I get something, like years ago when I remember we were still, again, technology, you were taking me through how to do the whole setup of everything. And then I get, the next thing, and the students just pull everything apart. I'm like, wait, what are you doing? But whenever I see it, I'm always just like, wow, like, how does this stuff work? But when the students notice that, they're really into, promoting accessibility and making sure that all students are able to engage in all these learning opportunities as well. And so I think that's huge. And you said a couple of other things too that I hope they come back to me, because you made some really great points. I was like hanging on to everything that you were saying. But before I forget, my next thought about a question is, you've had some different products, and you continue to like build out and add different features and functionalities. And the other thing that I like about it too is like, it doesn't always have to be about the tech, and it shouldn't always be about the tech. What are the basic skills students can build in the process? And yours, I mean, they have the cards, they can do all kinds of different activities, but what is, beyond what you've already said, what inspires and motivates the work that you and that Bruce do on a daily basis? Like, how are you figuring out, like, where do we go from here? Because you already have so much available, but what's that thing that you're like, yep, got to keep moving, got to keep going?
Okay, so maybe people that don't know Bruce. So Bruce is the co-founder, and we always laugh because Bruce is a geek. He is half blind, and he's got ADHD. So to get him even on a podcast for half an hour, his mind, will just be all busy developing the next product, and this is what makes him such a genius. So he's always thinking, just that next step. But what that allowed him to is put himself in the situation of those students. When he was a kid, he was put in the naughty corner because people, there wasn't a label. There wasn't, oh, it's ADHD. He was just a naughty one. And he was determined that that's not going to happen. And for me to go into a classroom and see, like, we were running a space race with a Mars mat, and we broke them up in groups, and these kids had to code, and they had to use Minecraft, and they had to do the AR and the VR all for this product. And this one kid was sort of not engaged. And I said to the teacher, what's up with him? And she said, oh, just leave him. And I'm like, what? She goes, no, he's got ADHD. And I'm like, well, bring him in. And she goes, he may disrupt it. I'm like, I don't care. Anyway, he came into this one little group, and I said to him, so what do you like? Games. I'm like, okay, that's good. And his friend said, he is so good at Minecraft. And I'm like, yes, we've got it. And I said, right, you need to go and design 4 Mars rovers. I want a base station from you. I want a solar farm. His face was like, yes, I can do it. And we went back about a month later, and that school won the competition because he saw his creations come alive in augmented reality and in virtual reality. And he couldn't believe it. And he was making changes, and he was saying, let's do that. No, let's code it and drive around. And this teacher is just like, you have made a difference. And even now, thinking about it, I've got goosebumps, because that is seeing kids react, seeing teachers come back and say, that's coding? Is that all it is? That's what makes me get up in the morning, go through my emails, see which teachers come back and say, whoa, I managed to add a sensor and I watered the plant today. And that's what makes me excited.
That resonates so well with me, because over the years of teaching, the 2 years that I did that robot with the hummingbird, then the third year I was like, okay, I could do this. And then there was a change. Well, what do you want to teach? And that's when I named all of the different things, like I mentioned before, that I teach in that class. And for me, when I think back to my 8th grade experience, technology was just starting to come into the classrooms, but I started to learn to code. I learned to code in school. I would go home and I would want to get on the computer, do some coding. And it was nothing like what it is now, but there was just such excitement in it. So when I'm trying to teach my 8th graders, I'm thinking like, augmented virtual reality, like, isn't this awesome? And for most kids, yeah, it's great. And for some kids, like, no, boring. I mean, I've had students over the years say, boring, nope, next, boring, over and over. And then when you find something that, like, that kid that you have, they connect with it, and they're just so excited about it. And they see they build these skills that they never knew they had, or they doubted that they could excel in. And that's your reason for doing it. And we're not going to reach every single student. We know that, but it's about providing a variety of opportunities. And I think when students have like choices where they can do as much or as little as they want, and they can build their confidence and comfort, that is so rewarding. But one kid years ago, again, didn't like anything, and then tried something different. And that following Monday, I had a call from the parent that said, I don't know what you've been doing in that STEAM class. And I got really nervous, and I'm like, I froze. And the mother said, but they spent the entire weekend doing, and I was like, seriously? Like, it only took 7 months of the school year to get to this point. But then the moral of that, or the lesson learned, is like, it was about giving the opportunities, and the kid had to try. And the teacher, myself, didn't know all the answers. And this kid created far more things that I will ever create, probably in my lifetime. But moving from 8th grade, that interest led them to go into studying coding after high school. And so, like, just who knew? So,
and I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is, and I don't know how we make that shift, and it's quite a, I don't want to, I think it's quite controversial as well, because what happens, kids come in and they learn scratch and blockly, which is great, or they start with a coding card. And it's great because it's a great understanding, how do we start? But to then move across to text-based coding is very challenging. And the research is showing that we are losing a load of kids at the age of 9 and 10. And they think it's because, they're going to high school, intermediate, and there's so many different things. But it's also because when they look at coding, they have to go over to text-based coding. And that is so different. They have to unlearn what is Blockly. And I think one of the good things that Apple is trying to do with like the Swift Playgrounds is they're bringing in the text-based coding a little bit younger. So, even with, some of the grade 5 that can do the Swift Playgrounds, but we've just actually, actually at ISTE, we're actually launching a Swift Playground for K3, which has never been done. So, Apple had this problem. They came to us and we gave them a solution. And it actually shows the Swift Playground for a kindergarten, what it looks like in text-based coding. So they will see its brackets and commas, and they may not even, but if they keep playing the Swift, they will still see the cards, but then the text-based keep popping up. And how quickly will we then be able to change that whole thing of what is text-based? Because, a kid can learn Blockly or Scratch, but how do we get them then really engaged in text-based coding? And I think that's one of the big challenges.
Yeah, and I know for me, I've tried all of these different platforms, and it used to be that when students came into my class as 8th graders, they really hadn't even gone onto a site like code.org. That was something for most of them very new, but they're using that at younger ages now. I forget what grade, but so I'm like, okay, I understand, like you've been using this for 2 years, and now we're going to try and venture out into different areas. But that's something else too, that a lot of people that I speak with as educators in the younger grades, I know it's really tough to find the time because they're teaching, they say they don't know how high school teachers do it. We say we don't know how elementary teachers do it, but you're responsible for all of these different content areas. And that's one of the things you mentioned earlier too. It just came around. I knew it would, that like cross-curricular, like when you can work with other content areas and find something like, I don't know where I'm going to fit something that's STEM related or coding into my classroom, but you can talk to that math teacher or that science teacher and say, hey, I heard about KaiBot, and can we do something together? Can we figure this out together and get our students working? And there are so many benefits to that, not just in learning the content and of course, building these essential skills that students need, especially with the demand for STEM related skills, but all of those other skills that employers want as well. And it's available for kids at a young age. And I know for me, I used to say, well, I'm just a Spanish teacher. Not now, I teach the STEAM course, but I think a lot of the times, a challenge is time, and then feeling like you have to know everything about whatever that tool is. And I can tell you that you don't, even the youngest learners, because with KaiBot, we're talking kindergarten. And that's like ages, 5 or 6, I think, roughly. And they can figure out things way faster than I can, I'm sure. And you really do just have to kind of put it in their hands, I think. But I did want to spend some time talking about KaiBot because there's so much to it. And for me, with my students, when I got my set, like they weren't that kind with opening the box of the cards or anything. And then the one student was like just ripping the plastic off of all the plates and everything and setting it up. And I just watched to see what they would do. I'm like, don't you want me to help you? Nope, we got this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn from you. But for people who are listening and they're thinking, I keep hearing about KaiBot or, Swift Playgrounds and all of these different things. What can you share with people to let them know a little bit about it or what they might expect or some ideas that, that they could use in their classroom if they're thinking, but I only teach 2nd grade?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll do the really, really quick sales one. So this is KaiBot. If I have him over there, this is going to focus. He's not going to focus. We're going back. Okay, tiny little robot, and we use screen-free coding cards. So they basically tap each card, and it will read out the program. So put it on a tile, and then with these tiles, they can build mazes and puzzles and escape rooms. And that's where obviously they can see the physical driving around the tile, and then they've got this virtual world. And talking about, we start really young and we go, okay, lesser than, great. Oh, these cards are not going to come up. Lesser than, greater than, maths. So coding is just a language, but how do we use it in the cross-curricular? So we do maths, we do social emotional learning, we paint. We can do it in Spanish. We can, we've got the Spanish and the English version. So fully inclusive. And the difference with KaiBot that's from K to 8, we scaffold it. So you may start just with the cards, then you add your Conundrum Lite app, which then takes you, just that next step. Then you can go Blockly, then you can go Python, then you can develop your own games. So we really scaffold it. And then the second product, Kai's Clan, we bring that in at grade 5. And that one is also, that's got the AR, that's got the VR, Internet of Things. I mean, we love it. 30 sensors, and it's plug and play sensors. So the fun then is they can go, and instead of having a Kai's Clan robot, I can go into Minecraft or Tinkercad and make that a Mars rover. Or if I'm on my autonomous warehouse mat, that can be my forklift. So it brings in the A in STEAM. So we want to become much more creative. And then obviously, I always laugh when you put them in groups, because Kai's Clan is more project-based, and you have maybe 4 or 5 kids. And you have the kids that wants to, say, where do we go, for instance, in the warehouse? And I would say, oh, you just sort of go to X and Y coordinates. And they would go X 19.5. I said, that's 20. No, 19.5. So you can see this little maths brain, like little hamsters, they just never, ever stop, which is fantastic. And then you've got the coder. And then these gamers all want to put on their headset so you can use your quests. And especially with the new quest, it's pass through, so we don't have any kids running around into doors and things, and they can see it. We're launching a new water cycle mat during ISTE, and it's for 6 to 8, so it's for high schools. And how do you connect the pipes? But with developers, I always say, go and find the Easter eggs, because they always hide these things. And I love it when students come and say, hey, I found the Dojo cat. I'm like, good on you. Nobody else has yet done that. So yeah, those are our 2 products.
And I remember when I had the Kai's Clan and I was charging, I'm like, I kept hearing this sound in my house. Like, what is this sound? And it was just very sporadic. They would one at a time and make the noise. And then when I got my KaiBot and I had it plugged in by my computer in the front of the room, I was on the opposite side of the room, and the students couldn't see it because I had it sitting kind of like next to my desktop, and I didn't know what it sounded like initially because I had just gotten it, and I kept thinking it was somebody's cell phone or they're playing a video game or something. And of course I'm like, whose phone is that? And they're like, it's nobody's phone. It's something in here. And they said, is it one of your robots? Because like I have headsets and just all kinds. I have drones. You name it. It's like laying all around the room in addition to the Spanish things. And I said, well, I don't think so. And then they could see the lights and like the little sound comes off. And I went, oh, that's what it is over there. So it was just kind of fun to see the students like response to it. And then to see all the things you can do with it. And I had no idea of how massive. And I can't recall now if it was FETC this year or TCEA. And there was like, it looked like a castle, I think, was set up over it. And I thought, I didn't even know you could do that. Like I knew that you could, but I would never have thought about that. But that's like the creativity of like students and how you can tie it into different stories. So maybe they're reading about something that involves a castle or some structure or whatever. And kind of like how I did years ago with my first experience, because infusing the arts of French and Spanish culture into it and what can they build with the different ideas. I think that is awesome. And then the other thing that you talked about too, just like helping the students to kind of build their skills and the fact, like the thing about the unlearning, and that's true. And it's tough for some students, but I like that there are all of these different options that don't require the technology, just the cards and the arrows. So they get the concepts of why steps matter, how you form it. And it's fun when the kids think that they've programmed something correctly. And then it's like, I'm like, can you please catch that before it falls off the table? And then that they don't necessarily need me. I mean, they do, to be there to support them and to learn from them, but the collaborative nature that happens sometimes, it's not even maybe that you set out to do that, but that's something that I've noticed in my classroom, where students they become like a little expert on certain things. And the students will start to say, hey, Miss Poth, can I? And I'm like, you know what, go ask this person. And sometimes the kids will say, is it because you don't know the answer? And I go, yeah, that's exactly why, because I don't know all the answers to everything. And then sometimes I'll say, well, no, they just figured it out. And I want them to kind of get that, repetition so they retain it. And that's something that's very effective as well. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I don't know the answer to it, and that's okay, because I want them to have that real experience, and I value that authenticity. And for students, I think it helps them to keep that curiosity, because that's also a concern, that kids will tend to lose their curiosity. They stop asking as many questions the older they get. And so keep on asking those questions, because that's how we come up with new ideas and designs and build relationships and problem solve and all those good things. But I'm excited to see at ISTE, because every conference where I see you, there's always something new, and there's always an amazing display and demos happening. And people really, I've kind of stood off to the side sometimes, and I see them walk away and I hear them talking about like, wow, did you see that? And just really impressive, especially with the like the mats that you have. And then you're tying in all of these things like augmented virtual reality, and you got the coding. And I think, and the last thing I'll say, and then I'll take a pause, is like, there are so many things that educators have to do that take up a lot of time, where you think, well, I need to bring STEM into my classroom, and then there's social emotional learning, and I have to teach the content. And it's like, it's another thing added on, when sometimes you find it's like, there's one thing, there's one tool, one resource that can connect all of those dots. And it doesn't take a ton of time to get started. And besides that, you are always so supportive. And, people have questions, like, just contact me. I might be, in the future, it might be in the middle of the night because time differences, but it's always so good to see you at conferences. So people that are going to ISTE or any conference where you will be, they should definitely make sure they stop by and actually see it in action, because that's the like, wow, when you see it. Like, you're hearing us talk about it, and you'll see some pictures and have links, of course, to go to the website. But when you actually see it, and then you see the student response to it, that's when you know that's making a difference. So I will stop there and ask you, because I get excited to talk about these things, and I always get excited to see you, even though we never have enough time to talk in person because so many things going on. So this is awesome. But other things that you have that you would like to share, that you would like for people to know?
I think I want to come back to, you're talking about problem solving and critical thinking, because I think it is a skill that is so, so important, that we have to get the students to understand that. And one of the things we did was, obviously, we did the debugging feature on KaiBot, because we wanted students to figure it out for themselves. So this robot can actually, so say, for example, you want to do a loop. So you want to do a square, and we're going to loop. So we're going to go forward, right, forward, right, forward, right. And then they're going to do a loop 4 times forward, right. So if you say loop forward, right, the robot is actually going to throw you a bug alert. One of those nice noises is going to go bug alert, and it's going to go number missing. It doesn't tell you where to put the number, but it's giving you a prompt to say, go and figure it out yourself. So you don't need to go to the teacher and say, it's not working, or it's not, I don't know what to do. It gives them the little prompts. And I think that's one of the really great features that is coming out of this product, that teachers are saying, wow, kids can actually start thinking for themselves. I'm like, where did we go wrong? Because we should have done this from the beginning. So, so I think that's one thing that's I really like about it. And then obviously, with curriculum, the thing that we love, especially with Kai's Clan, we went out, worked with educators and developed this curriculum. And then we've got the platform open where teachers can upload their own lessons. And I've probably got now matched them. I've got 100 lessons. I reckon when we started, we had 48, and I think 52 different teachers have uploaded their own lessons. And that's the community. So the one thing that we really, like you've got your community, and this is what we really want to work on. So definitely come to ISTE, come and join our community. We've got some cool stuff this time. I'm not going to give it all away. So yeah, that'll be absolutely amazing to see you guys.
Yeah, and I can't imagine like that you have even more cool stuff, because you already have a lot of really, really cool stuff. And the Kai's Clan, like I can't think of how many years ago that was. If it was, I think it was, yeah, I was going to say 4 years ago, but 4.5 years ago, which is unbelievable. And so it's awesome, from my experience, just to see the different things that you've added. But the number of, would you say more than 100? That's a lot. And I know when it comes to something like some of the questions that I get a lot when I do a session on STEM is where am I going to get training? Where am I going to find ideas? How much time is this going to take? Am I going to have support? And the answer is yes, you will have support. You're not starting from scratch. You can always find something or somebody, even more importantly, that you can connect with that has experience with it and can give you ideas. And that's what I love about like the whole community is you can see a different post. People are using it. I know Heather Brantley had a post recently. I think it was in her classroom. I remember seeing something. So like if you're on the socials, if you're on Twitter or X or different spaces, and you're using this or you start using this, like make sure you share, because that's where the learning also happens. And then you might find somebody that is doing something that you've thought about doing and didn't know how to start. And then there you go. So it's awesome. I'm excited to be at the booth. It is.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to be talking at the booth, so they can come and see you've posted, some of your things that you're doing. Come and check out. Like with KaiBot, we've got all these little characters. I'm not going to say too much. So all I can say, come and meet the owl. Yeah, come and meet the owl on booth 1474 and come and learn about KaiBot and Kai's Clan.
I almost said who? That was, I don't know about that. No, that's exciting. Yeah. So I'll make sure that I put all kinds of links in the show notes, and people can follow you if they are at ISTE or at other conferences. Check the list of exhibitors to see if Kai's Education is there, because if they are, you need to stop by, because like seeing it in person is really awesome. You'll be there a while, so plot it out in your schedule so you have enough time to meet them, because they're great to talk to. I know the last time that I think it was TCEA, I got a lovely pin from Bruce. Bruce wanted to keep giving me a bunch of pins. And I'm like, Bruce, I can't take all these pins. There are other people that need some of these pins. But I said, I will take a couple. And I still have those. So I can't wait to see what else you have available for educators who are looking to get started, or who are maybe have already started this year and a new school year coming up, looking for some ideas. So any other things that you would like to share with anybody before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you so much. You've been amazing. Your books, we always take your books and we give those away. I've read it. I just want to say thank you for you guys, because without your community, we can't grow. So hopefully, some of your guys will come and check us out. Yeah. I can maybe just mention one. You had a session last year, presenter, and one of the teachers that won the KaiBot, she has come and she bought KaiBots for her whole district.
Wow.
So that's the power of what you guys do as well. So yeah, I do want to say thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And that's awesome. I remember when I was drawing winners, and I don't know if it's the same woman, but it was almost like being on The Price is Right, like coming down, like running down the game show. Like I just won. I'm so excited. And then I did see a couple people at the booth after it was my STEM session too. So that's always good. And I think it's great for people to hear from somebody who's seen it, who's used it in the classroom, and then to have that opportunity to go and to meet the people behind it and to ask like whatever the questions are that you have or any concerns. That you can answer. And so you have that space. So, and if you're not at ISTE, that's okay. You can still reach out to them. So big thanks to you for joining me from the future. I had to say it. couldn't resist from the future. And thanks to everybody for listening. Please subscribe, keep on listening, go back and listen to other episodes, whether they're me talking to myself and then having my own conversation, or with some of the amazing guests like Ronel that I've had. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you the next time.